Hello, and a warm welcome to Geniuspire, the podcast where we decode life and help you design your future. My name is Malonga Muchalemba, and I'm here to empower 13 to 30-year-olds to take better control of their lives. Now, parents, relax. Taking control does not mean becoming a brat with a blatant disregard for authority. It means becoming more conscious of how you show up at whatever stage in your life. You won't always control your circumstances, but you can start controlling your mindset, your habits, and your choices step by step. Now, Geniuspire's #1 fan asked me to talk a little bit more about the Rhodes Scholarship. Now, the timing was ideal because I am the National Secretary for the Global Constituency, and we just selected 2 amazing scholars last Friday. So check out my LinkedIn profile for details of who was selected this year. So let me start by telling you about the scholarship itself because the context is important. The Rhodes Scholarship, for those of you who may not know, is one of the world's oldest and most prestigious scholarships. It was founded by Cecil John Rhodes, who was a British mining magnate and politician. He served as the Prime Minister of the Cape Colony from 1890 to 1896. He was the chairman of De Beers, a member of the legislature in South Africa, and a member of His Majesty's Most Honourable Privy Council in the UK. He was also credited as the founder of Rhodesia, which is present-day Zambia and Zimbabwe, placing him in the history books alongside Christopher Columbus, Amerigo Vespucci, and Simon Bolivar as those who had countries named after them. Cecil John Rhodes was a masterful empire builder and praised for the intensity of his patriotism. In his last will dated July 1899, less than 3 years before his death, he came up with the idea to create a colonial scholarship. His vision was to bring together exceptional young people from across the world to study at the University of Oxford so that they could learn from one another and help to shape the future. The ultimate goal was to strengthen the empire. He allocated scholarships to Rhodesia and South Africa, along with the United States, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, Jamaica, Bermuda, and Germany. The scholarships were established after Rhodes' death on the 26th of March 1902, with the first Rhodes Scholars from Rhodesia, South Africa, and Germany arriving in October 1903. Over the past 122 years, the Rhodes Trust has worked with generous donors to expand the scholarship. The Rhodes Scholarship is now available to citizens from all over the world via 25 constituencies, which are Australia, Bermuda, Canada, China, Commonwealth Caribbean, East Africa, Germany, Global, which is a catch-all for all countries not covered, Hong Kong, India, Israel, Jamaica, Kenya, Malaysia, New Zealand, Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, Singapore, Southern Africa, the cluster of Syria, Jordan, Lebanon, and Palestine, the United Arab Emirates, West Africa, Zambia, and Zimbabwe. Today, there are nearly 6,000 living Rhodes Scholars around the world who are united by a shared purpose to fight the world's fight. Now, given Cecil Rhodes' complex colonial past with my own country, Zambia, formerly Northern Rhodesia, why did I apply for the Rhodes Scholarship? I first learned about the Rhodes Scholarship in the summer of 2001. I read an article on General Wes Clark, which described him as fierce, fearless, and a warrior, and I thought, I want to be like that. I read up on the Rhodes Scholarship and other Rhodes Scholars and decided I wanted to be part of this amazing community of highly intelligent, highly accomplished individuals who are committed to making an impact in the world. At the time, I was hoping to come back to Zambia and serve as the Minister of Finance. Now, the Rhodes Scholarship is unique in that it is not just about academic excellence. The criteria that Cecil Rhodes set out had 4 aspects. The first was academic excellence, which has a 30% weighting, just as service, which is also important and is 30%. Then you've got 2 criteria that are 20% each, and the first is leadership potential, and the other is mastery and some extracurricular activity. The interesting thing about an Anglophone education system and culture is that it is modeled on exactly these things. You are encouraged to do well academically at school. You are encouraged or sometimes forced to have extracurricular interests. So mine was debating in school. You have the opportunity to lead, either at school where there are roles like being a prefect, or in church where you can sing in the choir or lead Sunday school, or at clubs at high school or university. And we are naturally inclined to do service where you look out for the most vulnerable people in society. Basically, I didn't know that I was already ticking the box for each of the criteria until I applied and won the scholarship in 2001. I also had a good relationship with most of my professors. So getting people to agree to write a personal, authentic, and non-formulaic reference letter for me was not a problem. I was the student who would ask and answer questions during lectures, and I would go to consult the professors in their offices after class. Even now, I still try to swing by my old university, called the University of Zambia, to say hello to my professors who are still there. So for most Rhodes Scholarship applications, especially from the developing world, the reference letters are usually the weakest link. People won't bat for you if they don't know you or remember you. So that is something I would encourage you to work on if you're thinking of applying. Anyway, I applied and I made it to the final round, which is a face-to-face interview. I was one of 12 finalists, and we had a 45-minute interview with a panel of 10 judges. Now, the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of Zambia was the chair of the selection committee, and there were other prominent people such as the British High Commissioner, the former central bank governor, and a prominent Rhodes Scholar lawyer who later joined politics. Now, Rhodes Scholar interviews are legendary, and I always tell people that no two interviews are the same. And so please don't spend too much time asking people what questions they were asked, because that will not be your experience. Because the selection committee can ask you anything about your application. So the best prep is to know yourself well and be clear about what you want to achieve. Now, I remember one question that caught me off guard. So apparently one of my referees said I'm highly intelligent and not afraid to demonstrate that in class, and that it probably irritates my fellow student. Now, the British High Commissioner is the one who asked me this question and for my reaction to that. And I laughed and said, that's probably accurate. And that honesty and the fact that I was not defensive or flustered, I think mattered more than any rehearsed brilliant response to a question like that. So in the end, I didn't just walk out with a scholarship. I walked out with a clearer sense of who I was, what I valued, and what kind of leader I wanted to become. So I was so happy to win the Rhodes Scholarship and the chance to study at the University of Oxford. We had to wait about 10 or 11 months between selection and finally arriving at Oxford. And arriving at Oxford felt so surreal. You walk through cobbled streets lined with centuries of history, the same halls where leaders, thinkers, poets, and revolutionaries once studied. It's humbling and inspiring at the same time. But beyond the dreaming spires, what truly shaped me were the people. The Rhodes community is like a living classroom. Every year you get between 100 and 104 scholars, each with their own story and their own mission. So you might find yourself sitting next to the next Einstein, or a climate activist, or a doctor working on maternal issues in India, or a technologist using AI to preserve endangered languages. Oxford teaches you to think, but the Rhodes community teaches you to act. Of course, it wasn't all easy. The academic pressure was intense. I read philosophy, politics, and economics, PPE, which is the most famous course at Oxford. And students have tutorials twice a week. And for every class, tutorial, you have to read lots of material and produce 2 papers and then debate with your professor one-on-one. It was intense. So academics was one thing, but the British weather was even more challenging to overcome. It can get really cold and it's raining and gray all the time. So I stopped working out. I gained a lot of weight, which I still carry, in spite of the food. And there were days when I felt truly out of place, wondering if I belonged among people who seemed to have it all figured out. But that's the beauty of the experience. You learn to belong by contributing, by showing up, by being curious, by staying true to what brought you there in the first place. After 2 years at Oxford, I left feeling happy, fulfilled, and grateful for the opportunity. So after Oxford, the question became, what now? When you win a scholarship as prestigious as the Rhodes, you would think that post-Oxford life is a breeze, but not quite. I originally wanted to go to Stanford to do a PhD in political economy, and I think I would have been fine had I gone down that path. But after a summer spent partying with friends in Johannesburg and Lusaka, I decided to apply for a job, and that was not as straightforward as I would have liked. It took me several months to get a job because I applied late. Many companies in the UK had already maxed out their work permit quotas. And in the end, I only landed a job in London with Shell because I applied to work for them in South Africa, but they couldn't get me a work permit to go to South Africa. So they asked if I didn't mind staying in London. I mean, life can be full of surprises, and it certainly was when it came to my career. The Rhodes experience doesn't end with the degree. In fact, that's when it really begins. Because the true test is not how well you perform at Oxford, it's what you do with the privilege afterwards. For me, it deepened my commitment to building bridges between Africa and the world, between young people and opportunity, between ideas and impact. Whether through my work in business, education, or youth empowerment, I've tried to live by that phrase, to fight the world's fight. And one thing I've realized is that fighting the world's fight isn't always dramatic. Sometimes it's quiet. It's mentoring one student. It's improving one policy. It's solving one local problem. Leadership is not about being in charge. It's about taking responsibility. The Rhodes community today reflects that, from scholars leading climate justice movements to those building startups, teaching in rural schools, or reimagining global governance. It's a reminder that leadership comes in many forms. Looking back, I'm deeply grateful, not just for the education, but for the transformation. The Rhodes Scholarship gave me a global lens through which to view my own purpose. It taught me that intellect without empathy is incomplete, that networks are only powerful when they include others, and that privilege is best used to open doors for those who have been locked out. If I could leave you with one thought, it's this. Don't wait for someone to give you permission to dream. Start where you are, use what you have, and move forward with courage. Because leadership isn't a title you earn, it's a decision you make every single day. And that's the lesson for today. Now, before you go, I have one more thing to share. Every week, I'm going to recommend a book or movie that is relevant to the topic that we discussed. Now, Robin Brown's The Secret Society, Cecil John Rhodes' Plan for a New World Order, published in 2015, is one of the most intriguing and controversial books ever written about Cecil Rhodes. Robin Brown dives into one of the most endearing myths and realities around Cecil Rhodes, that he envisioned and allegedly founded a secret society aimed at expanding British influence and ultimately bringing the world under Anglo-Saxon rule. The network Rhodes is alleged to have created evolved into influential circles that have helped shape the British Empire, the Rhodes Trust, and even aspects of modern geopolitics. He links Rhodes' will, writings, and associates to ideas that have influenced institutions like Chatham House, the Round Table Movement, and possibly the Council on Foreign Relations in the US. So how is the secret society viewed by others? So historians treat it with caution. Brown's claims mix verified historical facts, such as the fact that Rhodes did write about founding such a society, with speculative links that are hard to prove. Readers like myself find it fascinating, provocative, and readable. It reads more like an investigative history book than a traditional biography. And then scholars of the empire see it as conspiracy-adjacent interpretation of legitimate imperial networks like the Round Table and Milner Group. You be the judge. So we made it to the end of episode 9. Thank you so much for watching. Please drop comments here on YouTube or share a recap on TikTok, Instagram, or X using hashtag Geniuspire and tag us. Or email us at hello@geniuspire.com and we can read some of the comments on the next episode. So I am taking a 2-week break from the podcast and we'll be back with an insightful episode on the 24th of November. So in the meantime, hit subscribe on this channel so that you'll be notified when the next episode drops. And please share this episode with someone who needs it. Until the next time, keep dreaming, keep doing, and keep daring to design your destiny. Thank you and bye-bye.